There comes a time in every man's life when he must accept responsibility not only for himself, but for the people who depend on him. Whether it happens willingly or reluctantly, all men eventually be thrust into a position where their responsibility is to provide, to prepare, and when necessary, to protect. Not only do we intrinsically know that this is our duty, we also know it is no easy task, especially once we seriously start considering what responsibility means for the people who depend on us. Even though we know this position of responsibility to be true, or rather, self evident, modern society makes a sustained effort to reduce men to a single role provider. Our worth is mostly measured by how much money we can make and what we can materially provide. But when I look at the Bible and particularly Christ's example as the Good Shepherd, it becomes clear to me that our duty as men is bigger than provision. Our duty is to protect, and provision is only part of the responsibility that we as men choose to take on. And when I say protect, I don't just mean being able to physically defend someone, it goes much deeper than that. So tonight, I want to talk about what it really means for us as men to take on the role and the responsibility of protector. Welcome back to another episode of The Sanctuary. Big blessings to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. A little bit late tonight, but it's a late show. It's a late night show, so it wouldn't be a show if it wasn't a late night. If it wasn't late. Anyways, let's talk about it for a little bit. Protecting starts with becoming a refuge, a sanctuary of sorts, pun intended, a place where those people who depend on you can take shelter and find comfort in knowing that in your presence they have a safe place to rest. Right? So, you know me, everything is always rooted and grounded in scripture. So let me dive in. Tonight, a lot of what I'm talking about coming from Proverbs. I'm a man. I like Proverbs because in the deepest, darkest points in my life, I would have to say Proverbs saved me. Proverbs helped me find my way. Proverbs helped me, be grounded. Proverbs helped me, find God and find my path and find my refuge. So Proverbs 14:26, right? Let's see what that has to say on the topic at hand. In the fear of the Lord is strong confidence, and his children shall have a place of refuge. Powerful stuff. And when we talking about being a protector, we talking about creating a space. You hear me talk about sanctuary. That's what the sanctuary is all about. But creating a space where people feel safe. When a shepherd tending to his flock, he's around, whether that be in a specific fence or, even if there's no fence, there's a boundary that you set and that you are aware of what is going on inside of that boundary, right? So it's all about preparing a safe space for those that depend on you. And it starts by establishing boundaries and providing stability. That stability is found through faith in God. This Proverbs tells us that fear of the Lord helps develop our confidence. Men need a stable foundation on which to build. And I will always maintain that that foundation that we build on is found in Scripture. Having this faith and confidence in God provides those around you with moral stability, wise guidance, a trustworthy example, and a home shaped by reverence for God. These are all pillars of a stable and reliable foundation. For me personally, a large part of my spiritual foundation, like I mentioned earlier, is built on Proverbs. So let me dig in even deeper into Proverbs. Maybe I start maybe I start a series and I just go through Proverbs because whenever I have to say anything to anybody and recommend that to start reading the Bible, I will always tell them start in Proverbs. So right now we're talking about Proverbs 3:21 to 26. My son, let not them depart from thy eyes. keep song with wisdom and discretion. So shall they be life unto thy soul and grace unto thy neck. Then shalt thou walk in thy way safely, and thy foot shall not stumble. When thou liest down, thou shalt not be afraid. Yea, thou shalt lie down, and thy sleep shall be sweet. Be not afraid of sudden fear, neither of the desolation of the wicked when it cometh. For the Lord shall be thy confidence, and shall keep thy foot from being taken. There is again confidence. And how do we as men build the confidence that we need to be able to protect the people that we love? Right? Song, wisdom, and discretion. The reality is that protection needs to be more than reactive. It requires foresight. When you think about it, protection begins long before a threat arrives. When building our refuge and welcoming others into our safe space, we need to be constantly assessing potential threats and dangers, always taking preemptive steps to mitigate as much risk as possible, while simultaneously being prepared for the unexpected. We have to be prepared. We gotta be prepared. We gotta have that vision. We have to have, as it was say in the military, situational awareness. I ain't a military man, but as a man, I understand the concept of situational awareness. I understand the concept of, being in the role that we're trusting and being in the role that people relying on us. You have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to be aware of what's going on around you. And it's not just the immediate threats. It's 5-10 years down the line. It is having an understanding of where your country is going, where your city is going, how things going for you at work, right? Is your attitude at work going to affect the people that you have to protect and provide for? Is your work environment a healthy one? Is it time to look for another job? Is it time to step up and look for more money? Are you saving enough? Wisdom and understanding helps us prepare and helps us be able to protect and provide. More Proverbs again. Now we're going to talk to Proverbs 27:12. Let's see here. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. And to be prudent is to be wise. And being a man is always about confronting or putting yourself in a situation where, you yourself in danger. You could see the danger coming and you could make the preparation to be like, all right, I'm going to take a different road. I'm going to take a different path. I'm going to take a different action because, while I may be successful in the action I'm doing right now, is it the right action? What are going to be the consequences of my actions? Right? So when we're talking about being prudent and being prepared, here are some of the things that we need to protect others from and what we should be protecting against. Like, we should be protecting against indoctrination, against misinformation, against bad leaders. As simple as it may seem, casting a vote for a leader is a form of protection. Being involved in the political process, that's life, right? What I find as Christians, a lot of people look at what we would call the system, and when they grow, I used to call it dirty Babylon. And I remember when I first found God, I was all about burning down Babylon. I was all about fighting the system, fighting the man. But protection isn't always about a fight. Protection is about being involved. And that's why we got to get out as Christians and we have to vote. Because if we don't cast our vote for who we think is going to be the best option, the other people that, are threats to you, this is anybody or whatever the case would be, but if their specific ideology or if their specific belief and the leaders that they support are opposed to Christians or opposed to your way of life, or putting policies in place that make your city less safe, that make your country less safe, those people voting for those people getting on a vote. So it's your responsibility to look at the options and participate, because a no vote is basically one more vote for the person that you would prefer not to win. So even if the person that you're looking at electing is not the, perfect Christian candidate, you still gotta get out there and vote. And even if it's only two options, I'm certain that one option is better than the other. And that is a form of protection, being involved, spreading information, correcting people. When you know something is wrong, stand up and say something. See something, say something. Right? You don't just sit down and let people indoctrinate your kids. You don't just sit down and let people feed your children misinformation, or not even your children, the people that you care about the most. You have to make sure that they know the facts and they understand what's going on, because when they have knowledge, wisdom, understanding, they have the ability to protect themselves as well. Speaking of, we got to protect the elderly. And not only protect the elderly, we got to protect their legacy and the wisdom that they pass on to us, because that is so important. And speaking of legacy, well, let me shout out my grandmother, my knock, right? Lived to see 84, a matriarch. And one of the things that my knock tell me, which I'm going to share with you so we can help protect her legacy and that you guys can know. She told me once, Andre, a man needs to have a position and a principle in life. So I want you to take a minute and think about what your position and your principle in life when it comes to protecting the people that you care about. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to sacrifice? Because it is important. And it's not just fighting. It's not just taking a walking, but ADC, everyday carry, you got your gun on you training to shoot, whatever. The biggest threat to come for you is not going to be coming for you physically. The battle is won spiritually. Right? Some of the fiercest fights that you're going to have in your life is going to be spiritual battles. And you don't even have time to draw your gun, because it isn't going to be a time to draw your gun. So when we think about other examples of how we could protect our loved ones, it looks like a father preparing financially. That's protecting too. A father paying attention to what is shaping his children. That's protection. A man maintaining his health because people depend on him is also protection. When you think about it, protection isn't sexy. It isn't going to be John Wick style action, kicking ass and taking names. It is slow. It is methodical, and it isn't sexy. It's pretty boring if you ask me. I did joke with my wife all the time. I be here protecting this house all the time. I always on alert. I always on guard. All of my actions are actions to protect. And protection always comes with service as well. Which brings me to the next key point and the biggest threat that we need to protect our loved ones from. And it isn't going to come from the outside. It comes from within. We as men have to govern ourselves. You cannot reliably protect others if you cannot reliably govern yourself. There's a reason that in an emergency on an airplane, they tell you to put on your oxygen mask first. Because if you are incapacitated, you're no longer in a position to be able to help the people depending on you. So let's say you gotta put on your mask first. Before you can help others, you gotta be able to help yourself. Think about it. And personally, this is something that I struggle with, because we see things and you want to be able to help everybody. Like that's kind of the spirit I have. But you're not going to be able to help everybody. Like I wish I could give more money to people. But I got daughter, I got mom, I got people depending on it. I got a wife. And sometimes resources will be tight. So when you can, you give what you can. I like to donate to Goodwill. I like to ever so often go through my clothes and see what's good and what can be donated. Some Christmases we may adopt a child and send gifts to them, buy some gifts, help where you can. But you gotta be able to help yourself. That is one of the reasons why I started this channel, right? So like, comment, and subscribe, and let me help get this message out there. We boost me up in the algorithm, so I could continue to get more resources, so I could help as many people as possible. So I might not be able to give people money, a lot of money, but I can share wisdom and understanding, and then that's why I create this environment. That's why I create this sanctuary. That's why I create this refuge for men. That's why I'm doing this late night show, because that's help as well. But anyhow, we talking about being able to govern yourself. So speaking of, we back in Proverbs. We deep in Proverbs tonight. So Proverbs 25:28. He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. We gotta be able to govern ourselves. We have to, as men. We have to carry. Whether we like it or not, we carry that responsibility, right? And the truth about it is that way too often, in our desire to be vigilant and protect our loved ones from the smorgasbord of threats, we forget to keep ourselves in check. And if I use a big word, I use a body like big words, right? ChatGPT is telling you, use big words when you're trying to communicate. But a smorgasbord is a vast array and a vast variety. Actually, smorgasbord is one of my favorite words in the whole wide world. I love that word, right? But when we have so much threats and we on edge and we looking out for the next one, or we wondering what's gonna happen next, we forget to look inward. We forget to honestly assess our own shortcomings, and complacency gets the best of us, which can cause us to sometimes hurt the people we swore to protect. Yeah, sometimes in our effort we hurt the people that we swear to protect. And that could be something as simple as you may be identifying a threat or a problem in a relationship that you have in, and you know that you need to communicate, well, this is a problem, whether it be finances, whether it be a decision on where you need to live, or changing your job, or whatever the case may be. And in your haste or in your just thinking about your role, oh, I'm the leader, I can make this decision. Sometimes those decisions can hurt people if you do not communicate that decision appropriately, lovingly and caringly. Because just being a protector and just being a man isn't just like, hey, this is the law, this is what I'm gonna do. So you have to look at how you yourself are acting in the situation, how you yourself are being a good leader. All of that comes from within. So how can a man protect his household if he can't even govern himself? So on that note, some of the dangers we have to look out for within ourselves are anger, excessive alcohol use or other forms of addiction, pornography, bad spending habits, our own egos, impulsiveness, and a big one is going to be resentment, because sometimes carrying the burden of protector and provider can cause resentment within men. That's a true story. That's a true story. Because in some instances, men have a thankless role in society. Not only do we have a thankless role in society, we are the targets because we are the ones that are responsible. I was listening to a man on YouTube today, and he said something that really resonated with me. Like, he was basically talking about the fact that when you have certain conversations with other people, It could be women, it could be even other men. And they have the attitude of, well, why do you care? Well, why don't you just let people do what they want to do? And the reason is because we are the ones that are responsible to lead. And it's hard being a leader and being responsible and sitting down watching people be self-destructive in whatever endeavor that they may be doing. And it's hard not to say something. Even as a youngster, when they see that, because when they was growing up, it was a rant. People used to had to deal with bullies, had to fight. But because of that, when they see somebody bigger than another person and they bullying somebody, pick on somebody on sides, come and bully me, and they can step in and try to protect that person. But that's a thankless job, because sometimes you can step in and do that and the person might be, well, they don't care that you do that. You even see situations where you might see people having a domestic dispute, and you might step in and try to protect the person that is being abused, and then that person turn around and still go back to the abuser. Those kind of things just build resentment in you. Providing and protecting, breaking your back, and you come home and people aren't thankful. Thank goodness they got a wife that's thankful. They don't got to deal with that, but it is very easy to develop resentment. Very easy, especially if you know within yourself that you're doing the right thing and you still having challenges with the people that you're trying to help. It is resentment. So you gotta be on the lookout for that. So which means, as men, we should be constantly evaluating if we are in control of our temper, our impulses, our spending, our appetites, our pride, our fears, our addictions, and like I said earlier, our tongue. Because it is our tongue. It is very easy for a man to obsess about external threats, while his own lack of discipline becomes the biggest threat inside his own home. So always remember, the only thing we truly have control over is our own actions. That's the truth. We don't have control over anything else, because it is your actions and the things that you do in the space that you are given or entrusted to lead, that everything comes out from that center, right? From the inside out. And we could try to help others. We could try to step in. As in Barbados, we got this what we would say: you could take a cup of water, but you can't make it drink. Right? But at least you know you did the right thing, and the one thing that you had control over is you took the cow to where water was. Right, you take the cow to where water. That's the most you could do. That's what you had control over. Where the cow, where the one thing you had control over is where the cow is, or was, or will be, and you did that. If the cow don't drink the water, well, you did your part. But we got to be able to govern ourselves. So which brings me to the fact that to take on the role of protector comes with sacrifice. We must carry the responsibility, accept the cost, prepare wisely, but recognize that the ultimate security doesn't come from us, but it comes from God. Because God is the ultimate protector, the ultimate provider. He gave the ultimate sacrifice for us to be able to be in the position that we're in today. He died so that we could live. Right? And we have to be grateful for that, and we have to be humble. And although we take on the role of protector, we still have to be in the position of, yeah, I ain't God, but I could sure do my best to live by God's example. So we step out of Proverbs. We hit a lot of Proverbs, so we go somewhere else. Let's talk about John, as we're talking about the Good Shepherd, right? John 10, verse 10 to 14. The thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. But he that is an hireling and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep, and fleeth, and that wolf catcheth them, and scattereth the sheep. The hireling fleeth because he is a hireling, and careth not for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and am known of mine. Study it. People that don't take responsibility and ownership and agency, they don't care about the outcome. They're not invested in the outcome. That's where you come in. That's where we as strong leading men come in. Because if we follow the example of the good shepherd, because we are his people, we are God's people. So God gave his life and sacrifice so that we could live in abundance. We could have life abundantly. Study it. And while we may not be God, and while we would be far from on that level, we understand the assignment. The assignment is to model the actions of God as we try to make ourselves better every day, and as we try to protect others, right? God is the ultimate protector. He is the good shepherd. It is through him that we as men have the strength, wisdom, and understanding needed to step into our role and duty as protector. As we take on the challenges of this role, let we always keep these questions in mind. What must we be? A refuge. What must we develop? Discipline, wisdom, and preparedness. What must we remember? We are responsible, but we are not God. Right? And, we're not perfect. Man is not a perfect being. We all have our flaws. Sometimes we might be a little aggro. Sometimes you might be having a little rough day. We might snap. We might be a little mean, but we still have to take ownership and agency for what's going on. We have to take ownership and agency for our house, our home, our family, our friends, the environment that we foster, the example that we set. This is what it means to be a protector and a provider. Wherever we go, people look into us for results. People look into us to lead. People look into us for answers. People look into us for mentorship. Even in situations where you are not even aware of it, people relying on you. So if you've been struggling with the responsibility of being the protector and find yourself asking if those around you need you, as a man, the answer will always be yes. Yes, they need you. They need you to be stable. They need you to be alert. They need you to be disciplined. They need you to be prepared. And they need you to be willing to sacrifice. Big blessings. Gratitude is the attitude. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of The Sanctuary. I hope that this message finds you in good health, strength, and spirit. I hope that this message resonates with you and that it come at a timely point in your life. Because, being alone or having to struggle and deal with these things alone is hard. And that's how we get to the point of resentment. But anyhow, I ain't gonna keep you too much. The late show was a late show tonight. And again, thank you for tuning in. Like, comment, and subscribe. Most important thing that you could do for me is to share this message with somebody that struggling with stepping into their responsibility and role as protector and leader or provider. And again, big blessings. Gratitude is the attitude. Have a good night.